channel, guys. I just wanted to continue that single stock series that I've been doing, and I wanted to cover NVIDIA as my next one. So NVIDIA, I just want to go through kind of a bit around where the company's at. Is it overvalued? Kind of what is the direction, and why would you buy? What are the risks? So NVIDIA, as we all know, is really focused and forming part of this AI revolution that we're seeing. So in terms of revenue, it's been fantastic. They're looking at 30 billion in terms of revenue, which is insane. 280% year-on-year growth. And then their gross margin is 78.5% to GAAP. So that's, again, we're talking crazy numbers here. Their Q1 data center is 26 billion. So that's a 427% increase year over year. So we can see there's quite a lot of emphasis on the data centers now as part of their overall revenue. The premium valuation is on the high side. So it's a 4P ratio of 40x. And we'll talk a little bit later on around valuations. In terms of the quarterly revenue by segment, we can actually see how this is growing, and we can see the particular growth of the data centers. So NVIDIA traditionally had a fairly even split, or very close to even split, at the Q1 FY24, and we can see how the data center is substantially outgrown the consumer and gaming sector now. So it contributes to 80%, 86% of the total revenue now, making it a leader in the infrastructure space by a long way. And we can see that even in FY24, we had 4.27 was data center and 3% was other, so it's very tight. But we can already see a massive jump in Q2, and that just accelerated its way up into FY25 ongoing, and we can just see that market share kind of growing up in terms of their revenue for the business. So it's grown from, where are we, 4.28 billion to an astounding 26 billion in revenue. The US still remains the dominant market in terms of the revenue, while Singapore's kind of a key hub, that ongoing strategic navigation of global trading dynamics, and obviously some of the export controls that are currently in place. So US is still the main revenue generator at around 58, Singapore coming in at 25, China, including Hong Kong, is around 16, Taiwan then comes next at around 15, and then the other nations come around 13. In terms of expanding the profitability and the innovation, so NVIDIA obviously has a lot of pricing power. It has a lot of operational efficiencies, and we can see that in its soaring margins as a key indicator of its strong competitive position and profitability. So when we look at the net margin here, we can see that is actually getting stronger over time as the business gets more and more efficient. So despite the rapid growth, it's still able to maintain pricing power and operational efficiency. In terms of the growth, nations are racing to build their own AI infrastructure right now, creating a massive new market. And NVIDIA is obviously the primary beneficiary, securing sort of major deals worldwide. So recently they've secured a 2 billion partnership for a national AI research supercomputer in France. Even with the Saudi Arabia region, they've agreed a major deal with Humane to build a national AI hub. And even with Japan, they're working with the government and tech firms to build a domestic AI factory. So there's a massive push for all the AI infrastructure that's coming. In just looking at the kind of the moat and the competitive advantage. So whenever we're investing in a stock, we need to look at how much of a competitive advantage does it have? What are the barriers to entry for competitors? That moat that Warren Buffett loves to invest in companies that have these high moats, making it harder for competition to come in. So if we look at the CUDA software ecosystem, so NVIDIA's most durable advantage isn't just hardware, right? It's the software CUDA platform that they have. And this is a 2-decade-old ecosystem that basically creates an immersive development lock-in, making it quite prohibitive, complex, and costly for customers to switch. And we've seen that with a lot of the models. They're kind of optimized for this CUDA environment, and therefore it kind of reinforces this element. And we've seen this with frameworks and apps like PyTorch, TensorFlow, and millions of other developers that are kind of now locked into this kind of platform of library of tools that NVIDIA has kind of produced over time. If we just look at the data center GPU share market, and this is from 2024, we can see that NVIDIA has quite the lion's share, around 92% of it. And then it's then got AMD as its biggest competitor and some others in that space. AMD is gaining traction with its MI350 series, kind of securing deals with major cloud providers like Microsoft Azure and competing aggressively on the performance per dollar. We've then obviously got in-house silicon providers, so hyperscalers continue to invest heavily in custom chips. The best example of this is Google, right? It has its own TPUs, currently version 6, but also Amazon have got their own chipset. And basically what they're trying to do is optimize it for their own internal workloads and reduce costs. So when we talk about Google Gemini, etc., they're training it on their own chipsets. Intel is obviously another player. The Gaudi 3 accelerator is showing promise in kind of the early benchmarks right now, positioning Intel as a potential third major player in the long term, but it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so we can see that NVIDIA has quite a dominance in the sector now already. In terms of a roadmap for NVIDIA has obviously been aggressive in terms of its 1-year product cadence. It's trying to defend its moat, and it's aiming to kind of out-innovate all the competitors simultaneously and continuously redefine its structure. So we had the Blackwell Ultra H2 2025 to enhance the version of the current platform with more memory, targeting the most demand large-scale reasoning and agentic AI models. They've then got Rubin planned in 2026, which is the next-gen platform featuring the Rubin GPU, the Vera ARM-based CPU, and advanced Pascal networking for another leap, basically, in performance. We then have Ada next in 2027, which is a newly announced platform filling the gap before the major architecture, ensuring a constant stream of innovation and upgraded cycles. So they have a very robust roadmap already in place. I talked earlier around valuation and why it's such an important thing. So again, we need to look at the landscape. And if we look at the peer valuation comparison for forward PE, okay, it's still quite at a premium. But people are optimistic about NVIDIA's future for some of the reasons that I've kind of mentioned above. They're doing trade deals. There's a big push for infrastructure. They're ahead of the game. There's that software lock-in. There is the roadmap that I just shared. So there's a lot of things that are in NVIDIA's favor. And a lot of these other competitors are kind of almost struggling to keep up. But we can see that this does leave the stock slightly vulnerable when it's slightly overvalued, that if there are any geopolitical tensions we've seen with China, the export controls, although those been sort of loosened recently in recent days, which have boosted the share price, but we can kind of see how just small changes can have such an impact on the share price. Obviously, there is another thing around customer concentration. So they're sort of heavily reliant on a few hyperscale customers. And this does create a bit of risk. And they have to kind of bear in mind that also some of those larger players are also trying to create some in-house silicone to keep their costs reasonable and to try and manage their expectations and their costs. And then you've obviously got the execution and valuation risk. The premium stock price demands that flawless execution, any kind of stumbling blocks, any kind of problems they had with one of their chipsets that had an overheating problem and it majorly impacted their business. So getting these types of things wrong can have a major impact on the performance of the stock, etc. So again, we just need to kind of bear all these things in mind. So do I think personally, as from my opinion, I think NVIDIA is a good company. It's a growing company. I think it is at a high valuation, so you've got to be comfortable owning that valuation. So there you go, guys. There was a bit of an overview of NVIDIA. None of this constitutes as financial advice, but I thought I'd share this information out there. And this report was July 2025, so things may have moved on if you're watching this video in the future. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.